rock was never built for the fast lane. One minute you had crowds willing to follow a 12-string guitar through 4 key changes. The next, radio switched to 3-minute singles and left the long-form dreamers stranded. In the second half of the 20th century, a wave of bands poured everything: flutes, Mellotrons, Tolkien lyrics, into sprawling epics, climbed a rung or two on the charts, and then fell clean off the radar. Some were purebred prog, others danced on the edge, psychedelic, metal, even symphonic hard rock. But they all chased the same epic ambition and met the same quiet fate. Today we're hauling 13 of them back into the spotlight. Number 1. Gentle Giant. When the three Shulman brothers left Simon Dupree and the Big Sound in 1970, they swapped pop singles for recorders, cellos, and 5-part vocal lines. By 1972, they were the odd men out on Black Sabbath's US tour, opening with songs in 13/8, while the headliners stuck to straight power riffs. Octopus, UK number 21, gave them their first chart foothold. Then The Power and the Glory reached the UK top 30 in 74 and pulled 50,000 US sales on imports alone. A year later, Freehand climbed to number 48 on the Billboard 200. Proof that naughty Counterpoint still sold vinyl if the hooks were strong. TV appearances on Germany's Beat Club and France's Pop 2 made keyboardist Kerry Minier's wall of gear a familiar daytime sight across Europe. The grind, though, was brutal. Chrysalis kept asking for shorter tracks, guitarist Gary Green pushed back, tour buses got bigger while profits got smaller. A last attempt to court radio, 1980's 4-minute song Set Civilian hit stores and sank. 3 months later, after one final set at Hollywood's Roxy on June 16th, the band packed the van and walked away. Since then, no reunion album, no nostalgia package tour, just a trail of bootlegs, music school dissertations, and a reputation as the group that proved Renaissance harmonies could shake a rock club for almost 10 straight years. Though solo interviews and fan releases trickle out now and then, Gentle Giant remains one of Prog's most enduring disappearances. No reunions, no comebacks, just myth. Number 2. Camel. London's club circuit thought Andy Latimer's quartet was just another blues act until Mirage dropped in 1974. 5 tracks, endless atmosphere, and artwork nicked so closely from a cigarette pack that lawyers rang the bell. A year later, the group gambled everything on the Snow Goose, a wordless concept album about a wounded bird. Hit UK number 22, earned a silver disc, and sold out the Royal Albert Hall, with a London Symphony Orchestra on stage, flautist and all. US FM DJs slipped cuts like Rayadar into midnight slots. College kids taped them straight off the air. Behind the scenes, things cracked. Drummer Andy Ward's breakdown halted tours. A management lawsuit froze royalties, and Decca insisted on a hit. The pared-back single Factor barely reached number 57 in 1982. 8 months later, the label contract ended. Ward was out, and Latimer shelved Camel to fight the court case and moved to California. By the time a retooled lineup re-emerged on an indie in 1991, grunge owned MTV, and 7-minute flute solos were ancient history. Still, ask any prog collector, and Moon Madness sits in the front row. The quiet classic that never left the turntable once the needle dropped. Number 3. Focus. Hocus Pocus hit American radio at the end of 1972 and shot to number 9 on the Billboard Hot 100 in June 1973. At the same time, it climbed to number 2 in the UK, the first Dutch rock single ever to break either top 10. The album behind it, Moving Waves, was certified gold in the United States, after moving about 500,000 copies. A quick follow-up single, Sylvia, reached number 4 on the UK chart, and pushed the double LP Focus 3 to number 9, on the Billboard 200 and number 1 back home in the Netherlands. By mid-1973, the band was filling 3,000-seat theaters across Europe, and opening US arena shows for Yes. Ask anyone who's heard Hocus Pocus, and they'll remember the yodels, but few remember the band behind it, or their wild instrumental experiments. The hot streak didn't last. Guitarist Jan Ackerman and organ flute leader Thijs van Leer argued over writing credit. Drummer Pierre van der Linden quit during sessions for the next record. Hamburger Concerto still cracked the Billboard Top 40 in 1974, but radio programmers were cutting song lengths, and punk was on the horizon. A grueling 40-city US tour in 1975 ended with unpaid crews and canceled dates. Ackerman walked out for good in early 1976. The next album, Focus Con Proby, stalled below the charts, and a short break announced in February 1978 turned into a 24-year silence. Since 2002, Van Leer has fronted several reunion lineups that play theaters in Europe, yet the worldwide spotlight never returned. Number 4. Iron Butterfly. San Diego teens landed in LA in 1967, turned a blues riff into a 17-minute monster, and watched In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida sell 4 million copies in its first year, the first album in Atlantic Records history to go platinum. The title track, All Organ Drones and 2-minute drum solo, hit number 30 on the Billboard Hot 100 in a 4-minute edit, while the LP climbed to number 4 and camped on the chart for 140 weeks. By summer of '69, they were third on the bill at the Atlanta Pop Festival, just behind Led Zeppelin and clearing $30,000 a night on the college gym circuit. More psychedelic than prog, but their influence bled into early heavy prog, and their fall from the spotlight was swift. Trouble showed fast. Guitarist Eric Brand quit over songwriting credit. Bassist Lee Dorman and drummer Ron Bushy fired his replacement mid-tour. Ball 1970 still reached number 3, but the live draw slipped and the label wanted another Gadda. Metamorphosis 1970 stalled outside the top 15. Radio cut song times again, and a new manager booked a punishing 60-date run that left half the crew unpaid. When a planned European tour fell apart over visa fees in May of '71, vocalist and organist Doug Ingle walked. Atlantic dropped the contract a month later, and Iron Butterfly went dark before the year closed. Number 5. Star Castle.
Shine, your spirit is growing.
If Illinois cornfields seemed an odd birthplace for symphonic rock, nobody told Star Castle. Epic Records signed the Champagne Sextet in '75, banking on their stacked harmonies and Rickenbacker bass lines that echoed early Yes. The self-titled debut grazed the Billboard 200 at number 159, enough to put them on arena bills with Boston and Rush just as both headliners were exploding. A year later, Fountains of Light, produced by Queen engineer Roy Thomas Baker, inched to number 152, but radio still filed them under too many keyboards, not enough hooks, and reviewers hammered the similarity to their British idols. 2 more albums followed. By 1979, label brass demanded something radio could pronounce. The result, Reel to Reel, ditched epics for 4-minute AOR and stalled completely. Tour support vanished, Epic dropped the contract, and the band folded before the decade closed. Apart from a one-off reunion album in 2007, released after founder Gary Strader lost a cancer fight. The name survives mainly in cutout bin lore, proof that Middle America once tried to build its own starship and almost got it off the ground. Number 6. Enchant. San Francisco's Enchant rode in on the second-wave prog surge of the early 90s. Inside Out Music heard a self-funded demo and threw real studio money at a blueprint of the world. 1993. The debut moved 40,000 units, big numbers for an indie import, and put the band on European bills with Dream Theater and Spock's Beard. Follow-ups Wounded 96 and Break 98 tightened the hooks, while singer-guitarist Ted Leonard's clear tenor sneaked Oasis onto late-night US rock radio. By 2003, they stacked 6 studio albums, a live double disc, and magazine answers that called them America's answer to Marillion. Then the lights went dark. Label budgets shrank, drummer Paul Craddock quit to score films, and Leonard took side gigs to pay Silicon Valley rent. From 2004 to 2013, Enchant released nothing, played 0 tours, and disappeared so completely that eBay prices for Wounded cracked $60. A comeback LP in 2014 proved the chops were intact, but the decade-long silence had moved the buzz to newer names. Number 7. Happy the Man. Clive Davis signed the Washington, D.C. five-piece in October 1976, after hearing them at a Georgetown bar. Their first album, Happy the Man, hit stores in May 1977. 7 instrumentals plus 1 9-minute vocal track. It reached number 45 on the CMJ College Radio chart, and Rolling Stone listed it among the year's best debut records. The band spent that summer opening for Foreigner on a 30-city U.S. tour. Kid Watkins' Mini Moog solos were the crowd highlight. Second album, Crafty Hands, landed in June 1978 and entered Billboard's Jazz LPs list at number 29. 1 week later, Arista dropped its entire prog roster to chase new wave acts, freezing funds for a half-finished third record. Drummer Ron Riddle joined the Air Force, Watkins accepted an offer from Camel, and by April 1979, Happy the Man broke up without a farewell show. The unfinished tapes sat in storage until 1990, when they were released as Third, Better Late, showing how close this US group had come to matching Britain's prog leaders before label cuts stopped the run. Number 8. Cynic. Drummer Sean Reinert and guitarist Paul Masvidal started Cynic in a Miami garage while both were still in high school. After 3 self-made demos and guest spots on Death's landmark Human album, 1991, Roadrunner finally offered a deal. Their debut, Focus, dropped in September 1993. The same week the band hit the road with Cannibal Corpse and Napalm Death, a groundbreaking fusion of death metal aggression and progressive experimentation. Focus layered jazz chords, fretless bass runs from Sean Malone, rapid tempo shifts, and robotic vocoder vocals. Critics loved it. Kerrang! Called it the future of extreme music, and worldwide sales cleared 50,000 by spring of '94. MTV's Headbangers Ball even spun the Veil of Maya video at 2 a.m. The road was less kind. 150 shows in 9 months, 2 stolen guitars, a blown van engine, and label pressure to pick one style. Tour money ran out early 1994. Grunge owned US radio, and the group split before a second album was started. Over the next decade, Focus became a cult item. Bootleg copies, $100 original CDs, and steady praise from bands like Opeth and Between the Buried and Me. A reunion in 2006 filled European festivals and led to Traced in Air 2008, plus 2 more EPs, but business fights and lineup changes stalled plans. Reinert left in 2015. Both he and bassist Sean Malone passed away in 2020, 6 months apart. Number 9. Greenslade. After quitting Coliseum in 1971, keyboard player Dave Greenslade wanted a rock group with no lead guitar at all. He called up bassist Tony Reeves, added a second Hammond for himself, and brought in drummer Andrew McCulloch and organist-vocalist Dave Lawson. The first album, Greenslade, came out in May 1973 with a Roger Dean cover and climbed to number 22 on the UK chart. Warner Brothers ran a full-page Billboard ad that named them the new supergroup, and US college stations worked the single, Feathered Friends, into late-night playlists next to ELP. Follow-up Bedside Manners Are Extra appeared 6 months later, reaching number 27 in Britain and scraping the Billboard 200. Tours with Rory Gallagher and Uriah Heep filled 2,000 seat halls, but money problems showed up fast. Reeves quit in early 1974 over unpaid advances, and Warner pushed for shorter songs. The hurried third record, Spyglass Guest, 1974, sounded flatter and stalled at number 34. Final album time and Tide, 1975, missed the UK Top 40 entirely, and punk fanzines started to label anything longer than 4 minutes dinosaur rock. Greenslade played its last show at London's Marquee in January 1976. Dave Greenslade moved into television theme work, including the BBC series Gangsters, while Lawson joined Stackridge. The twin organ idea slipped out of print for years, turning the first 2 LPs into quiet classics for collectors who like their prog without a single guitar solo. Number 10. Pavlov's Dog. St. Louis bar bands didn't usually hire Mellotron players, but Pavlov's Dog aimed straight for art rock glory. Columbia signed them in 1974 for a reported $650,000, huge money for an unknown Midwestern act, and rushed out Pampered Menial in the spring of '75. Two rival corporate parents, Columbia and ABC, accidentally issued the LP a month apart, splitting promo dollars and confusing record store clerks. Even so, the album squeaked onto the Billboard Hot 200 and hit FM rotation on the strength of the soaring single Julia. Follow-up At the Sound of the Bell, 1976, featured guest turns by Bill Bruford and sax great Michael Brecker, but internal feuds and David Surkamp's helium-high vocals divided critics. A third album, Has Anyone Here Seen Siegfried?, was tracked in 1977, then shelved when Columbia balked at costs. By year's end, the advance money was gone, and the van was sold, and Surkamp headed to England to busk pubs, leaving behind two cult LPs, a lost master tape, and the lingering question of how a band with that budget vanished so fast. Number 11. Inglagord. Formed in Stockholm at the end of 1991 and recorded Hybris the following spring on 8-track tape at Largan Studio. The 4-track album, released by the tiny Mellotrons label in September 1992, pressed 5,000 CDs and 1,000 LPs. Every copy was gone within 6 months, and a second run pushed total sales past 10,000. Exceptional for an underground Swedish release. Hybris topped reader polls in Germany's Eclipsed magazine and Japan's Marquee. In October 1993, the band flew to Los Angeles for Prog Fest at UCLA's Royce Hall. The set was later issued as Buried Alive, 1996. Second album, Epilogue, arrived in November 1994. 3 vinyl sides, 43 minutes, no vocals, first pressing 4,000 units, sold out in advance on European pre-orders. Early 1995 brought setbacks. A winter road van crash destroyed keyboards. Drummer Matthias Olsson began military service, and guitarist-vocalist Tord Lindman left to finish university. So the remaining members placed the project on indefinite hold. Sporadic reunions followed, Nearfest 2003, Japan 2005. But a third studio record didn't surface until Will Hans Jurga in 2012, by which point first issue LPs of Hybris were trading for over $250 among collectors. Number 12. Shadow Gallery. The Bethlehem, Pennsylvania group spent 1990 to 1991 recording the debut in guitarist Carl Caden James's farmhouse basement. Magna Carta released the self-titled album in April 1992. 3 years later, Carved in Stone shipped about 40,000 copies worldwide, second only to Liquid Tension Experiment on the label sales sheet. Tyranny 1998 brought guest solos from John Petrucci and producer credit from Kevin Shirley. Japan's Burn magazine ranked it number 9 in that year's reader poll. Even so, the band turned down tour offers, pointing to day jobs and the cost of hauling a 7-minute songbook on the road. File sharing cut deep. Legacy 2001 leaked 3 months early, and US SoundScan logged fewer than 12,000 paid copies in its first year. Room 5, 2005, reached stores with no North American press run. On 29th of October 2008, singer Mike Baker died of a heart attack at age 45. The group issued Digital Ghost in 2009, with new vocalist Brian Ashland. The record missed Billboard's Heat Seekers chart. Their only full live show after Baker's passing was Prog Power Europe, October 2013. The studio has been quiet ever since. Number 13. UK. Pull one voice bassist from King Crimson, John Wetton, one drummer off Yes's Close to the Edge tour, Bill Bruford, Roxy Music's 23-year-old keyboard violin prodigy, Eddie Jobson, and jazz fusion guitarist Alan Holdsworth, and you have UK, formed November 1977, signed to E.G. Polydor 6 weeks later. UK hit stores March 3, 1978. 6 tracks, average length 8 minutes. Number 65 on the UK chart, number 67 on Billboard. 120,000 US copies in its first 6 months. The spring theater run with Al Di Meola drew 3,000-seat sellouts from Boston to Denver, but Musical Aim split the camp. Holdsworth balked at written solos. Bruford pushed for more jazz. Both quit after the final show in Providence. July 30th, 1978. Jobson and Wetton rebuilt around drummer Terry Bozzio, ex-Zappa, and cut Danger Money in January 1979. The trio record reached number 45 in Britain and number 59 in the States. Single Nothing to Lose spent 5 weeks in the UK Top 75. A sold-out 8-night run at Tokyo's Nakano Sun Plaza, 11,500 tickets, yielded the live LP Night After Night, which hit number 9 on Japan's Oricon chart. CBS wanted a third album trimmed for radio. Wetton had early offers on the project that became Asia. On the 17th of March 1980, the group quietly filed dissolution papers with EG Management. In 30 months, they left 2 studio albums, 1 live set, and a footnote as the last all-star prog act to chart, before MTV's 3-minute rule took over. So 13 names up, 13 stories told. Odd meters, long solos, chart peaks, sudden silence. Which entry caught you off guard? Drop your pick below and hit subscribe for the next deep cut dive.